Hey everybody, this is Hondo Carpenter, your Las Vegas Raiders insider, podcast host, as well as your Las Vegas Raiders beat writer on SI. Thanks for joining me today. We've got a bunch of stuff to go over, a bunch of emails, a bunch of information for you. And then at the end, a couple of emails that aren't Raiders related. And I'll tell you so my ever present critics can move on because they don't like it when I have them. But I think most of you will greatly enjoy them. Let's get right to our email. The first one comes to us. Hello, Mr. Carpenter. This is Ben C. from Syracuse, New York. As always, thank you for your coverage. You have reported that there is a growing sense in the league that Shedeur Sanders is not being graded as a first round pick. My question is, do you think Tom Brady's reported relationship with Sanders will impact the team's assessment of him as a player should be as a player should be available when the Raiders pick in the first, especially if only Cam Ward is off the board? Thank you, Semper Fi. I'm assuming, obviously, because he said Semper Fi, he is a Marine. Thank you for your service to you and all of our warriors. God bless our incredible American warriors, both past, present, and current. Um, I have not spoken to Tom Brady. I don't know what Tom Brady is thinking inside of his head. I won't pretend that I do. However, knowing the conversations the Raiders have had around the league, looking for an experienced guy, I would not read into this because Tom Brady's been very open. In fact, we've written about it that he thinks it's important for young quarterbacks to sit. So I wouldn't read into that, but I don't know what he thinks of Shedeur. But I can tell you that the vast majority of teams I know, and I've said this all along, had Cam Ward at one, Jackson Dart with a one, but at a bottom of the one ranking. And Shedeur was somewhere after that. I still think Shedeur is going to go in the first round, and I still think he's going to go early. I got an email here coming up in a minute about Shedeur, the next one that will address that a little bit more. But no, that's just where I hear people. Now there are other people that disagree. I'm not offering what Hondo thinks because nobody cares what Hondo thinks. This is what am I hearing from NFL people? Because what they think matters. Okay. This one comes us from Kenny. Kenny R. Kenny says, Hondo, I don't understand all your hate for Shedeur Sanders. It doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't seem to be part of who you are. Can you explain it? I have no idea where that comes from. I don't hate Shedeur at all. He's a great kid. I've said all along. I I hear people say, oh, Shedeur, he comes with baggage of his dad. I don't think there's any baggage with Dion at all. I sincerely don't. I don't hate Shedeur in the least bit. This is an evaluation of a person's ability to play quarterback, and I'm telling you what GMs say. So if you want to take what GMs say into hate, I can't help it that you don't have the maturity level or the intellectual capability of deciphering what that is. Shedeur Sanders is a wonderful kid. This is nothing to do with that whatsoever. Hi, Hondo. My question is why do so many people seem to think that Gardner Minshew won't be on the team in 2025? I realize his results weren't spectacular last year, but let's not forget that both quarterbacks regressed under Luke Getsy and that it took time for the offensive line to integrate in the rookies to gel. It could be argued that he never really got a fair shot last year. That's George W. in Montreal, Canada. Okay. That's a very fair opinion. That's a very fair opinion. And we'll see. Next one. Hey Hondo, I was wondering how probable you think it is for the Raiders to bring back Nate Hobbs. I am no expert, but everything that he is on the field, he is electric. I also know that Max Crosby loves him too and has called him the best nickel corner in the game before. It doesn't sound to me that you are too optimistic, but I am just wondering if you think they will bring him back. Luke S. from San Diego. Okay, I want to address this right here. I am only presenting to you what I'm hearing from NFL people. I think the Raiders would like to have him back. Certainly would. Now but there's been a regime change, and I think they're going through looking at everything with a fine-tooth comb. I mentioned the other day I heard from people in the NFL. And as you know, I've been talking to you since the season started that I expected once Tom Brady got approved as an owner, a minority owner, and the Raiders are moving forward, I expected them to go through their strength and conditioning with a fine tooth comb. I don't know of anyone else who's reported that, but I have been adamant about that just from things I'm hearing uh, within the vicinity of the Raiders. We'll leave it there. That said, when I was at the combine, I heard a couple people, well, I heard more than a couple, but I heard some NFL people saying they wonder that if the Raiders just got more than their fair share of injuries. And could it be that it was because of poor strength and conditioning? Because everybody gets injuries, but they seem to get more exponentially than anybody every year. Now, that was their opinion. So I know there were some who were not as worried about Nate Hobbs. I know there were teams that thought Nate was electric, best nickel corner, just like you said, in the NFL, but he misses too much time. So with the new regime in there, we're going to have to wait and find out. I think they want him back, but there's also going to be a question of dollars. You're going to get a quarterback. You've got there's a couple of offensive needs. Excuse me. You've got Max needs a new deal. Spilly needs a new deal. Trayvon Merrick needs a new deal. Adam Butler. There's just a lot of questions, and there's only so many dollars. I don't know that I would say I'm not optimistic. I don't think I really have an opinion. We'll find out. Next one is from Rick P. Hondo, I watch your podcast every day and I really enjoy it. I have been a Raider fan since the Mad Bomber days. The first game I ever went to, I remember a beautiful touch pass from LaMonica to the great Warren Wells. I have been looking at all the quarterbacks the Raiders might draft without using the sixth pick. I really like the undersized Dylan Gabriel. He can make every throw and passes with an excellent anticipation. What do you think about us using one of our threes to pick him up? Rick P. Interesting. Again, my opinion doesn't matter. Whoever Mark Davis made this clear. Tom Brady's picking the quarterback, and Tom Brady, and he should. And so I want you to hear me because I mean this with all respect. What I think doesn't matter a rat's rear end. When you've got people like Pete Carroll, Chip Kelly, and Tom Brady, I don't care what any pundit thinks, including me. Who cares? I want proven quarterback people picking the quarterback. Now listen, Bill Parcells, and we've talked about this in the past, so I'm not going to dig into it. Talked about, and he had a lot of success picking quarterbacks, what he wanted in a quarterback. We've already talked about it ad nauseum, so I won't get into it tonight or this morning, whenever you're watching. But I will just tell you, Dylan Gabriel fits most of what Bill Parcells said. That's a big deal. But I'm going to listen to Tom Brady. I'm going to listen to Chip Kelly. I'm going to listen to Pete Carroll a lot more than what Hondo Carpenter thinks. The kid's a winner. And that's got to be worth something. But so is Will Howard, and he already has a relationship with Chip Kelly. So it's up to them. They would know better than anyone. I'm not trying to be evasive. I don't mind giving, if I'm talking offensive lineman, defensive lineman, I can give you. But when it comes to those other ones, I'm going to defer to those men. And rightfully so. Next one comes to us from Jeremy R. And Jeremy, let me just say your son Bo, adorable. Absolutely adorable. Here we go. One thing on my bucket list is to attend training camp. I would love to hear about how I can make that happen. I know that in the past you had to be a season ticket holder to attend training camp. Is that still the case? That's from Jeremy R. All right, Jeremy, couple things. Training camp this year, last year's in Costa Mesa. The Rams made a big deal about it so that Raiders couldn't have guests, just um, season ticket holders. Okay, just season ticket holders. This year, it's going to be in Napa. And I am told that no decision's been made. Who knows if the 49ers are going to make a big stink? I mean, they're in Santa Clara. And I'm told, according to the mileage, how far away you have to be in Napa, they would be fine. But if they use San Francisco, they won't be. So let's wait and see. If it's open only to ticket holders, find a friend who's a ticket holder and ask them to bring you, and or buy season tickets. And if it's not ticket holders and it's open, then we'll get more information on that when it becomes available, how you can apply. Next, hey Hondo, you have repeated the point that you feel there are certain historic NFL teams that you do not go to in order to learn how to be an NFL coach, and the Raiders are one of them. I love this question, by the way. This is probably one of my favorite we're going to do today. Do you hold that same belief when it comes to a rookie quarterback? Are there certain places where an NFL rookie quarterback should not go in order to learn how to play at this level? Thanks, Hondo. Jesse T. Okay, great question. This isn't the one I thought, although it's still a great one. It isn't my favorite. I got to get to that one, wherever it is. Let me say this to you. I am traditionally against a rookie playing. Traditionally. I'm not against it at all times. There has to be specific situations because we've seen too many rookies, Dan Marino, Jaden Daniels, CJ Stroud, and others who really did well. Peyton Manning had to learn the position. To me, it all really depends on the maturity of the player, and it is a rare player. Few players have that maturity to come in year one. It's about maturity and learning the game. I would say to you, 10% at the most are ready. 10%. And I actually think it helps some guys to sit. I think it helps more guys to sit personally, but that's just my personal opinion. And you asked for that, that's what I gave you. Hondo, do you feel like Shedeur Sanders has as many red flags as Caleb Williams did last year? Both came into the draft season as the number one guy. Both had a ton of questions. Peter B. I don't think that Shedeur's question marks are like Caleb's at all. A red flag means warning, warning, warning. I don't see red flags with Shedeur. I see question marks. Absolutely. I would not pick Shedeur in the first round, but I would pick him in the second. But if they're convinced he's their franchise guy, for all goodness sakes alive, go get him. And in case anybody says, well, Hondo changed his tune, no. Wherever they pick a quarterback, I'm going to be supportive. I mean, from a media standpoint, I'm not going to blast it. You say, well, why not? Because I'm going to trust the greatest quarterback of all time, a Hall of Fame coach, Chip Kelly, and those guys to pick their guy. Do you remember when Jimmy Garoppolo got signed? I made the comment flat out. I think this is a terrible hire, but my opinion doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. If he succeeds, Dave Ziegler and Josh McDaniels deserve all the credit in the world. And if he fails, they're going to get all the credit in the world. And they did. So if they pick Shedeur in the first round, I'm going to tell you what, I want the kid to do well because I think he's a good kid. And I don't root against the Raiders. I'm not a Raider fan, but I don't root against them. But I'm going to trust wherever they want to pick them. But listen, don't mistake question marks from red flags. That's a big mistake. Next one from K. Darcy. Hondo, Tom Brady wanted Josh McDaniels and he failed. He wanted Ben Johnson. It didn't get him. He wanted Matthew Stafford, and you get the point. When will you media guys stop carrying the water for Brady and call him out? Wow. All right. Couple things. That's a fair question. He did want Josh McDaniels. He did want Ben Johnson. I think the Raiders could have done a little bit more for Ben. But like with Stafford, they knew where their limits were. They knew what they wouldn't do. So it didn't work out with Ben. If you want to be critical of that, fine. I think the Raiders are better off with Pete Carroll. I have said for years, I don't think this is a job you go to learn at. So, speaking purely out of respect for the organization, I believe there's an old country western song. Sometimes I thank God for unanswered prayers. I think it was a blessing that Ben Johnson isn't coming here. And I don't think Ben Johnson is going to be a great success, although I think he did some really good hires with his staff. I think it's 50-50 whether Ben Johnson is a great success in Chicago. Okay. I don't think there's any question mark Pete Carroll's going to succeed. No question at all. So there you go. But I think it's fair to bring up Josh McDaniels. That's fair. I don't think the Ben Johnson thing, I think that worked out for the good. And Matthew Stafford, the Raiders did absolutely everything. They had a deal in place, 2 years, $100 million. They knew where their limits were, what they weren't going to give. They were not going to mortgage the future for a 2-year guy. If they thought that Stafford was the age when he came out of Detroit, they would have done it. They weren't doing it for a 2-year guy. So I don't blame him in the least bit for that. I think it was a blessing that they didn't get Ben Johnson. And Josh McDaniels, I think that's pretty germane. Now, let's keep going. Hondo, I first want to credit you for being the first to report the Raiders were investigating and pursuing a trade. But my question is this. You said Matthew Stafford was the best quarterback, but what about Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, and others? Leo B. Great question. He was the best quarterback that was available. And he had been given permission to talk to other teams. So that's available. That's available. So if I had a choice between Matthew Stafford and Joe Burrow, Joe Burrow. If I had a choice, let me see who else you would. Okay, if I had a choice between Josh Allen and Matthew Stafford, I'm taking Josh Allen. I think the Raiders are, I already said, the Raiders are investigating everybody they can investigate. Next, Hondo, I'm curious, based upon this class of available quarterbacks, if you were sitting in the Raiders general manager chair and you could go trade for any young quarterback who isn't presently a starter, I'm thinking Milton, but Hendon Hooker and others, to be the leader of this franchise moving forward, who would you go get? I'd love to hear your opinion because I know you talk to a lot of people. That's from C or Aransis. Aransis. I apologize for getting your name wrong. JJ McCarthy. He's going to be really good. JJ McCarthy for sure. And if JJ McCarthy was available, I believe the Raiders would jump on it. I'm not guessing there either. They would jump at JJ McCarthy. But it's a matter of, does he become available? What happens with Sam Darnold? Do they franchise him, which is only a 1-year deal, which they really shouldn't get rid of JJ, or do they give him a long-term deal? We'll see where that all goes. Next, Terry B says, "Hi, Uncle Hondo. Given all your access on and off record conversations at the Combine, give me one player in each round the Raiders may target." Great question. Not going to answer it. I'll be doing my mock drafts, and you'll get to see some of that. But there are some things, and I'm in a position where I learn information. So give you an example. During the season, we beat reporters get to go in and watch practice every day. And we are not allowed to disclose what happens at practice. And that's negotiated with the NFL and the Football Writers Association of America. And by the way, I think the Professional Football Writers Association, I apologize. Okay, I have no problem with that. There is nothing that I do that should hurt the Raiders. Now, let me give you an example. If I'm told of Raiders having an interest in a guy, okay, but it's a quiet thing, and there are some information and things that I get that I'm just, like them, but don't talk about it. I'm not going to not do that. I'll give you another one. I knew of a player one time, and I'm not saying this was with the Raiders, not saying it isn't, but it was at a team I covered where a player uh, got into a pretty bad situation. And he actually called me and asked me for a ride home. I went and got the player and took him home. And he literally said to me a couple days later, "Are you gonna? You haven't written about it yet?" I said, "Not gonna write about it. You didn't do anything wrong. You did something a little stupid, but it isn't newsworthy, and you did the right thing, and you didn't drive home." So not everything is newsworthy. I could have written that; it would have gotten a lot of clicks, but that's just not how I roll. And so I will never. I have certainly reported things the Raiders did not want reported because it was newsworthy. Okay, let's go back to the Devontae Adams. I put a tweet out. Tonight's going to be a big night for the franchise. Please bookmark this. I'll tell you why later on in the year or at the end of the year, something like that. Because I knew there was a growing sentiment of problems with Devontae. I could have reported it that minute, but I knew who my sources were on the team. I knew that they weren't talking to other media. So I wasn't worried about someone else reporting the story. It was a legitimate story, but it also didn't it would have caused a lot of division in the Raiders had I reported it when the season started. So I waited a few months. When I reported it, I was still the first to have it, but it didn't wreak havoc on the team. I am not against reporting things that I know that the team is not going to like, but I'm also not out to hurt the team. And I think there's a fine balance. If you report the truth, the team may not like it, but they're not pulling your credentials. Everybody lives in this fantasy world. It's just not the real world. But at the same time, I also don't think it's my job to hurt. There have been some stories that people have reported over the years that I've been a reporter that I'm like, why? Why is that a story? Why? I don't think it is. I'm not going to do it. And I'm thankful to work for a company that says, you know what? If it's not a story, we're not looking for clicks. We're going to report legitimate stories, football related. Other people, we may disagree with other people, whatever, but we're not looking for just anything. And so that's why. I hope that makes sense to you. So I will tell you, I think there's a lot of people who've made some really big movement. Judkins at Ohio State made a lot of movement. Travion Henderson made a lot of movement. I think there's a lot of guys. Will Campbell had a massive, in case you didn't hear me, massive combine. I did not think Will Campbell was a potential at 6. I absolutely do now. Do I think it's probable? If I had to put a percentage on it, is it 50% or higher? No, but it's a pretty good percentage. That is a dominant left tackle. I was told by someone uh, they want to spend some time with him. They're going to spend some time with him, and they're going to go to his pro day. But they think he is absolutely potentially in that Joe Alt Talise Fawaga category. Will Campbell. So but that doesn't hurt the team. So, but I appreciate that question. I think it's a very germane question. Were there some players that really clicked? Yeah. So last year, you guys may remember, you can go back and watch the podcast. The night the Raiders selected Delmar DJ Glaze, the mule, I raved about him and what the Raiders thought of him. Okay. I knew all these things about him. Well, I'd been told, boy, this kid really impressed, and was told by someone, part of the organization, somehow, some way, that this guy's got to become a part of the Raiders. He's the real deal. Okay. And I was told, please don't report that. And so, while everyone was panicking about tackles being taken, I kept tweeting, relax, relax, because I knew that Delmar DJ Glaze, the mule, was still on the radar. And all DJ did was make me look smarter than what I am. It was really my source who was smart. So sometimes you just have to be careful there. All right. Let's keep going. Uh, Hey, Uncle Hondo. It's Johnny Rundell, age 12, emailing from my dad's email. You said we might be able to trade for JJ McCarthy. What would it cost us to get him? P.S. I want to be a Raider podcaster just like you. Well, good, Johnny. I'm glad. And I'll tell you what, if you get with me later this off season, I would like to have you on the podcast. So don't do it now, but after the draft and all of that, send me an email from your dad's account reminding me that I said I'd like to have you on, and I would love to get you on the podcast with me just to do a short interview. So I'd love to have you on. Anything I can do to inspire you, Johnny. I don't know what the cost would be. It's going to be significant because he looked really good before he got hurt in preseason. And I know it was preseason, but he looked very good. He looked the part, looked very, very comfortable. One thing that really shocked some people is, I mean, he's audibleizing in preseason and making the right reads. It would cost, there'd be a cost. I'm okay with that. If you're convinced he is your franchise guy, then go get him. And you got to live with that, just like they had to live with Garoppolo. I'll never forget, I was on the national radio the night that the Chicago Bears picked Mitch Trubisky, and I could not believe they made that pick. And I was asked, what do you think of it on national radio? And I told them I couldn't stand it, but that everybody needed to tap the brakes. These people are risking their career on that pick. They've got a little bit more vested interest in us. Now, it turned out we were right. It was a bad pick. They put the risk there. So if you're convinced he's the guy, you go pay what you got to pay. Let the critics be damned, and you go pay what you got to pay. The next one comes from Kyle M. Kyle lives in Sherman Oaks. I think that's in California, but it's in Sherman Oaks. Kyle says, Dear Hondo, I remember years ago, before you came to cover my beloved Raiders, learning about you on Mike and Mike. I remember it was before the draft, and they were laughing at you in your last mock draft for saying that Tim Tebow would go in the first round. I also remember on the Monday after the draft or something like that, them having you on because you were the only one predicting Tim Tebow in the first round, and he went in the first round. I was so excited. I started following you then, but I was so excited when you became a Raider beat reporter. Can you explain how you do what you do? Great question. I listen to people around the league. A lot of media have a tendency, not all by any stretch of the imagination, but some have a tendency to think they're the story. They want to make it about them. And it really wasn't about me. And I said it to Mike Golick. It wasn't about me. It's building great relationships and making it about them. I try to bring you the best information I can from my sources. And if I use information, I never, ever disclose the person or do anything to hurt their team. But I kept hearing from one person who happened to be connected to the Broncos that if Tim Tebow was there, they were taking Tebow. And this person was adamant. And that's exactly what happened. So it's just literally listening to people. I get no credit for all the failures. Blame me for all the credits. Give it to the other people. Um, Next. Hi, Uncle Hondo. What are your thoughts on the draft potentially having a draft lottery in the future like the NBA does? With a team like the Raiders, who are constantly around 500, we are perennially not good enough to be consistent Super Bowl contenders, but also too good to have a top 3 overall pick to pick an elite quarterback prospect. Thank you for all that you do. Kendrick from Los Angeles. Great question. Great question. Um, I don't like the lottery for a lot of reasons, and then I love the lottery. I don't like teams that tank. I have no respect for teams that tank, and I think it hurts it. I think the NFL is better when teams are still fighting to win at the end of the season. Do I think every team that is out of the playoffs should be in a lottery? I got to think about this one, and I'm not being political. I'm really not. I hate the lottery so much, but I see teams that certainly attempt to lose, and it irritates me. It irritates the daylights out of me. It's unfair to football. It's unfair. And I know the players hate it. And teams will move around it by putting guys on IR or whatever. And so it isn't really the players doing it, or coaches will call games a certain way. It's disrespectful. It's disrespectful to the game of football. It's disrespectful to the fans. It's just disrespectful. I don't like it. But I'm not a lottery guy. I got to think about that one. That's a good question right there now. That's Kendrick from Los Angeles. Next, from Doug H. in Colorado. Hey, Hondo, I'm fine with moving on to the next guy, but do you think there's a chance the Raiders go to LA, up their offer by adding Meyer or something other than a first round to get Stafford for less than 50 million a year? Thanks, Doug in Colorado. No. Do I think I can tell you this, and I've already reported this, and I feel bad for Matt because he's going back for the right reasons. And the Rams were like, "You want to up your offer? He's still available." That's disappointing. And had the Raiders up their offer, well, I don't know that that happened after the conversation. So let's make that clear. But the Raiders could have upped their offer. Matthew Stafford is not a Raider because the Raiders didn't give the Rams what they wanted. And he's not a Raider because he wanted to stay there for his family. Had the Raiders been willing to pay what the Rams wanted, Matthew Stafford would be a Raider. So no, I would not go back, and I'm sure that they offered everything but the one. I'm sure of it. They could have got him for a couple of twos. I don't. They were not going to do that. So it is what it is, and that ship has sailed. All right, for all of you that hate non-Raider content, you can leave now. But for the rest, you have 2 emails I want to read. Very. Oh, by the way, I don't know why it didn't get in here, but somebody sent me an email and it didn't make the stack, and I'm going to ask my staff why. But it was an email from somebody. This is where I thought that last question was going. Okay, I'm still Raider here for a minute. When someone asked me about first year coaches, someone said that the Raiders had, won their Super Bowls with for some first year coaches. Why do I now think the Raiders aren't that team? Great question. The Raiders were different then. They're an iconic franchise now. I don't think you take risks now. You are a brand. That's my opinion. But great points. Absolutely terrific points. I mean, Madden is a legend. Al Flores, legend. So, I mean, you can certainly make those arguments. Certainly can. Okay, the next two emails have nothing to do with Raiders. So if you want to go. Just don't bitch and moan about it. I guess I don't read them anyways. It doesn't matter. So go ahead. But my staff has to. So don't do that to them. All right, here we go. Hondo, I want to thank you for your openness about adoption and your son Dexter. My wife and I have not been able to conceive, and we have thought about it. I was scared because I didn't know if it's possible to love a child that doesn't have your blood the right way. My father was such a great dad. I wanted to be that. It wasn't because I didn't think I would love the child. I was just scared about loving enough. You have convinced me I can. I love the Raiders, and on a personal note, you have changed our lives. Would love for you to be our child's godfather. Now, I'm withholding their name just because they shared personal stuff and I don't want to bother them. But let me just say to this person, that makes me feel terrific. Adoption is a blessing from the Lord. Children are a blessing from the Lord. And if I could just have a small piece of even remotely convincing you, that makes me happy. So thank you for letting me. But as far as being a godfather, that is a big job. A lot of people just approach it lightly, like, okay, you get a trophy, you get a trophy. That is literally entrusting someone saying, I am asking you to keep an eye on my child's spiritual development. If I fail as a dad, or we fail as parents to train them in the nurture and admonition of the Lord, you're going to promise to step in and be like, come on, guys, you made a promise you dedicated this child to the Lord. And if I'm not part of your life, I can't do that. And it's too big of an honor. It's a huge honor. I am sure there are lots of people around you that love the Lord with their whole heart who'd gladly take that honor. I'd be glad to be an honorary uncle, and I'll send a birthday present. And I'll send a present when you do it. But I want to do it the right way. All right, here's the next one. I withheld the name on this one because it's about adoption also. Hondo, I was a child of adoption. You have no idea how much it blesses me to see you talk about and love Dexter. Oh man, this makes me happy. See how much to see you love Dexter. How much you love Dexter. Come here, Dex. Come here. Please, I'm sorry. Please come see Dada. Come on, hurry, hurry. The people are waiting. Come on. All right. We're talking about you. Okay? Okay. Can you say hi to everybody? Hi, everybody. Hi, everybody. Wave. There you go. Here you go. Ready? Hondo, I was a child of adoption. You have no idea how much it blesses me to see you talk about and love Dexter. Do I love Dexter? Kissy, please. All right, here we go. It forced me to have a big conversation with my adopted parents. Unlike Dexter, who clearly is not your color or race. Hey, wait a minute. Don't we look alike? Yes. All right, here we go. You're not your color or race. As my parents, excuse me, unlike Dexter, who clearly is not your color or race, I am the same color as my parents. You just got a suntan, don't you? All right, here we go. Now, I am the same color as my parents, but I felt dirty because they never told people I was adopted. I mentioned you and asked why they didn't ever tell anyone. A dam broke, as they said. They were never embarrassed. Hold on, I know you want food. Let Daddy finish, okay? It really healed our relationship from something that wasn't even real. They said they thought I would feel like I was telling people they really weren't theirs. Mr. Carpenter, it healed our family. I love my parents so much. Thank you, sir. And I withheld their name. Now, let me just say this to all of you. Adoption's great, isn't it? Yes, let's say, yay, adoption. Adoption. All right. It's a wonderful thing. And let me just say this, maybe you're like the first person and you're concerned, I don't know if I could love you. Trust me, you will. Because you know what? This little guy came into our family and everybody loves Dexter, don't they? Do you have a bunch of brothers and sisters? Do you have a niece? What you have a niece too, don't you? Yes. And you know what? It's a blessing. And I appreciate those two emails more than you'll ever know. And I love what I do and I love covering the Raiders, but I'll tell you what, those two just made my day. And I am going to keep those for Dexter's memory book. You want those in your memory book? So when you're older, you can tell everybody, right? All right. Who knows? If you adopt a little girl, she may end up being your wife. All right. All right. Can you say goodbye to everybody? Can you say goodbye, everybody? Can you tell everybody? Can you say, God bless you? All right. Bye bye, everybody.